It is time for me to release The Sims.
I suffer from a debilitating condition known as atrophic chokitis.
Peter's one of the greatest depositors I've ever seen.
Trust the process. Let's go. Let's go.
I got auto matched with Levitan. This is bullshit.
If I just go the other way in that 66, I win all the money. All the money.
If I had 150 lineups, I'd win too.
Process over results.
Illuminati make a bitch go crazy. I don't know which one of these my baby. Bust out AP, close 5 bullets in your head like KD. Bust it, bitch go bust it. And I had 10 pints with me in Russia.
Hey everyone. Good evening, everyone. How are we doing? How are we doing? Can I get my camera to work? There we go. There we go. Have I missed any news? I was making my 20 max lineups. Did I miss anything? Pete Carroll says Chris Carson should be able to return to practice on Wednesday. Does that help you guys out? Let's see here. Among the Bears not active tonight are Khalil Mack, Eddie Jackson, Alec Ogletree, and Damian Williams. Does that do anything for you guys? I think that's all I got on the news front. Just cleared my notifications. We're good to go. No one asked me for football takes tonight. I'm just going to tell you what the numbers say. Okay. That's what we're going to do tonight. How are we doing? This game is gross, but it's exactly why we gamble. Yeah. And I mean, look, I feel like the perfect narrative bookend to this gross week 9 is a shootout between Justin Fields and Ben Roethlisberger, right? Because we had Thursday night football with the Jets going nuclear, Jonathan Taylor going nuclear, and then we had one of the worst main slates of all time, just a complete disaster. And now we have the game on the slate with the lowest over-under. What's it at? Is it at like a 39 right now? So it just seems completely fitting that this game goes bonkers. Just an all-out shootout. Justin Fields unleashed, rushes for 100 yards. Big Ben tossing 100-yard touchdowns to Chase Claypool. Right? That's what we deserve. I didn't talk to anyone who enjoyed football yesterday. There were a few people who won money playing DFS, but man, the takes were out there flying. Is the NFL product actually bad? It's always been bad. I mean, come on. Who can sit through these commercials? We just love to gamble. We love DFS. Josh says every time Pete fixes his camera with his hand, I high five him back. High five, Josh. High five. Actually, now I'm going to mess up my camera trying to give you a high five. Wow, Andrew, already getting off topic. Have I watched any World Series of Poker? I have not, although I follow Jungle Man on Instagram. Seems like he's having a lovely time out there. He was dressed like Bam Bam or something at his, what did he win? The $50,000 Players Championship or something? And then I saw he had a lovely night out at the club. That's about all I've heard about from the World Series of Poker is Jungle Man winning a bracelet. Let's see here. Dustin says, I usually have a good strategy to my MME set, but when I looked at my lineups tonight, angry emoji, vomit emoji. Yeah. I mean, I have some Kalen Bellage captain lineups. Is this a safe space? Am I allowed to say that? Am I allowed to say I have some Kalen Bellage lineups tonight? And look, I was running the Sims and Kalen Bellage looks like one of the better flex plays. He's only 200. He is, he's only going to project for, a 4 or 5 point ceiling, but that's still a pretty good value on Showdown. I'm seeing about a 3 to 4% ownership, aggregated ownership, and he's showing up in the Sims 14% of the time, 13.4% of the time. I mean, that's a green light. That's a flashing green light that you get to play Kalen Bellage. We should feel so lucky, so blessed to have math's permission. Big math is giving us permission to play Kalen Bellage tonight. Other guys that look good, David Montgomery looks good. My guess is that we are going to get a bit of an injury ownership discount on David Montgomery tonight. It kind of makes sense to me. I do think it's actually a fragile situation and one that we can actually mess with in the Sims a little bit. I think our inputs on him are probably going to end up being a little more on the aggressive side, which I actually think is the smart move, because Matt Nagy, which again, we can argue with whether we want to trust Matt Nagy or not, but he said when David Montgomery returns, he's going to get a full workload. So right now we have him for a 55% market share of rush yards, 47% TD market share, decent market share of receiving here. And then Khalil Herbert shifting into that backup role, 15% market share of rushing, 13% TD market share, and then a pretty paltry receiving role here. So this is one of those things where if you know better, if you think this is going to be a 50-50 split and you want to adjust Khalil Herbert up, and we can do that, then David Montgomery isn't going to project well. But based on how we are projecting him, he's showing up in the sims far more than it looks like he's going to be owned. I'm seeing an average ownership of about 25%, and he's showing up here in our sims 38% of the time. So David Montgomery looks like a pretty good flex play if you believe he kind of returns to a full workload. And I agree with this take from Andrew here. David Montgomery gets his usual share since there was no reason to activate him with how well Herbert's been playing. I think he's a smash. Yeah, I mean, I think I was talking about this with Leone and Hulk on the tilt space. Like, it's hard to have like a blanket way that you view these injury return situations, because so much you hear is, he's going to be limited. He's just going to be used in high value situations, which, as an example, on the main slate, we heard that about both George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey. And Christian McCaffrey was not getting quite as many snaps as he normally would if he was fully healthy. Like, his return was, 80% of his normal workload. Kittle was right off there to the races. So with this coach speak and stuff, I do think it's hard to have just like a blanket rule of thinking, oh yeah, he is actually going to come back and get all of the work. But in this specific scenario, I am leaning in that way, just like Andrew is saying. I don't think at this point they would rush him back and force it, especially with how well Khalil Herbert was playing too. Jabril saying, I like Chase and Anthony Miller. Let's see, Chase Claypool here. So Chase Claypool, as a flex play, looks like he is being rostered a little bit more than he's appearing in the sims, seeing about 30% ownership, which is similar to kind of the aggregated ownership I was looking at. And he's only showing up in our flex sims here 20% of the time. So not looking like the best flex play. Let's check the captain stuff. Similar with the captain, I'm seeing about 8% captain ownership and about 5% captain in our sims here. So I don't think he's a bad play. He clearly has the kind of upside and game breaking ability, but as far as, are you getting kind of a leg up on the field? Probably not. What are sims? I mean, we probably should do these refreshers more often. Simulations are ways to incorporate all of the different interactions that happen on the field. So if you think about an optimizer and what that's doing, it's just taking one input, which is the median projection, or if you run it with a ceiling projection or whatever, and spitting out the best possible lineups with that one projection. What the simulations do is they say, all right, if Big Ben throws for 5 TDs in this scenario, well, that means that Najee Harris probably isn't rushing for a touchdown in that scenario. So it, in those scenarios, is going to lower Najee Harris's projection because it knows that most of it is happening through the air. And maybe that's a bad example to explain it, but it's factoring in all of these variables in these scenarios. There's 10,000 simulations that are run, and then it spits out the lineups that show up most often in those different simulations. So all of those kind of the range of outcomes can be captured, as opposed to a median projection, which can only spit out one number. And then we can go, and when we look at the custom lineups, the simulated lineups are often reflecting the correlation we see. So when you see a Justin Fields captain, you are going to see a couple of pass catchers in the lineup, because it knows that if Justin Fields is getting there to the captain spot, it's going to be because of his pass catchers. Where if you were just running an optimizer, you might have something where the math says, well, all of these Steelers and, the defense and the kicker are showing up here because of the math. but it's not understanding that the correlation would boost the pass catchers. The sims kind of understand that correlation. So hopefully that was a good explainer of how these sims work. And what I like to do when I'm playing, 20 max, especially, is I like going over to these inputs and playing it through a few different game scenarios. So the default sim uses the Vegas lines and the implied totals, which is Bears 16.3, Steelers 22.8. And then we can see, the captains who are popping the most. And so in this one, we're seeing Najee at 25% in the sims, and then it's fairly flat here with Fields, Montgomery, Deontay Johnson. Now let's go see if we mess with this. Let's play this as the Bears win. Let's say they upset the Steelers and it's a 24-16 game. Let's lower the Steelers rush rate just a smidge if they're losing this whole game, and let's boost the Bears rush rate just a smidge. And then we're going to run the sims again underneath this different scenario. Analyzing playbook. So now you can see here how much this changed. We now see Najee come down from a 25% captain, which makes sense. If they're losing and the Steelers are throwing way more, he's not going to be appearing in as many lineups. And now Justin Fields, with the Bears front running and playing well, he becomes the more popular captain. And so this is how you can start to figure out how important it is for your lineups to tell a story, because Justin Fields in the baseline sim is only showing up 9% of the time, because it's working under the assumption that the game goes how Vegas thinks it's going to go, which is a good assumption, but we know there's lots of randomness and volatility. So what happens in this scenario? Well, if you want to play the game like the Bears win by a touchdown, well, all of a sudden, Justin Fields looks like an incredible captain, because you're going to be getting double the field ownership relative to how much he's showing up in the winning lineup in these scenarios. So that's why it's fun to mess with this stuff. And I think there's some other interesting ones we can do here. I kind of want to do the Khalil Herbert one and actually just bring that up. What is DFS? What is life? Let's see here. Let's do, I want to do one more thing here with the David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, just because I think that's kind of interesting. So we have them, what is this combined for? A 70% market share, and then Justin Fields has the other 2.8. What if we just bring this to a direct split? Let's just go like 35 here. I think that would be kind of interesting. And then what do we have total here? 13.6. Our total TD market share is 60.7. So let's give them each half. Let's just split this. 30.35. This is for the bros who don't want to believe that David Montgomery is going to come back to a full workload. So this will be interesting to see what happens here in this scenario where we make it a 50-50 split, which I do think, 25% of the time this game plays out, and I could see it being a fair split. And so you see in this scenario, David Montgomery comes way, way down. Actually, his flex ownership doesn't come that far down. It's his captain ownership that comes down a little bit, because we had him at 11% captain in the baseline, and he comes down to 4% here. And then the other thing that's interesting about this is, where's Khalil Herbert? Where is Khalil Herbert? That's crazy to me, that even when we boost Khalil Herbert up to a full-blown timeshare, he's still not popping in the sim. So again, doing these exercises is important, because to me, it says, all right, Khalil Herbert does not look like a good play under a lot of different scenarios, even when we give him half of the workload. And I think it also strengthens David Montgomery as a pretty good play, because his flex percentage didn't change that much. It was only his captain percentage that came down. So to me, David Montgomery looks like a really strong play, almost regardless. Yep. Yeah. This is what we just saw here. So I think if you're hand building just a couple of lineups, I do think it's probably smart to take Herbert out of the player pool. Here we go. I mean, I know what happens if we do this. Run a sim with Najee getting hurt early, like a 15% rush. I mean, do you want to see Kalen Bellage captain? Is that what you're asking for? I mean, we could do it. Let's do it. Sounds like a great time to me. Let's reset these. You want us to bring Najee down. So we have this as 89%. You want me to flip it? You said 15. All right. So we'll do 15. And then that would bring us down to, that would put a Bellage up at like a 74% market share. We're sick. This is absolutely sick. And then let's just flip these. 10.8, 76.5. I mean, this is disgusting. I can't believe you're doing this. All right, let's do it. I'll show you what happens. I can't wait for this. Kalen Bellage, boom. 15% captain, 60% flex play. It is pretty crazy that even when Caleb Bellage gets that much of the rushing yards, he still isn't just a total smash at $200. I mean, it's even in that scenario where Najee Harris gets hurt after 4 carries and Kalen Bellage sees the rest of the workload, he's still only the winning captain 15% of the time. I mean, come on, Bellage. All right. Look at you guys. I'm just your puppet. And you guys are the puppet masters. Put a 24-7 Steelers win with a high rushing share. Okay, I will do it. But I would prefer if you ask nicely, kindly. Let me reset all this stuff. Oh, okay. Yeah. Actually, that wouldn't have changed the Bellage thing, but that was set for that one. So sorry, what did you say? You want 24-7 Steelers win. 24-7. We boost their rushing rate up to 50%. They win 24-7. And the Bears rush rate has to come down in this scenario. Let's see. This is also probably not that unlikely of an outcome here. All right. So Najee just becomes massive, massive captain in this scenario. So 36.2% of the time he's showing up in the optimal, which again isn't actually a ton of leverage because he's going to have around 20% captain ownership. The Najee captain ownership is actually kind of interesting. ETR has him pretty high at 26%. I think Osimo was a little lower on him at 16%. This our ownership projections here have him about 27%. I think in that case, you're probably looking at about 25% in 20 max, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him up closer to 35%. But again, this goes to show you that he is not a great captain play because you essentially need the Steelers to win by, a blowout 24-7 and have their rush rate a decent bit higher than their normal rush rate. So to me, that's saying, all right, Najee doesn't look like as great of a captain as the field wants him to be. Let's look at some of the textures of these lineups here, though. I'll default back to the baseline sim here. Is double kicker stupid? So the thing about double kicker, and I've talked about it on here, and I talked about it with Justin when I did a show with him early on, and the kickers don't show up in the sims a lot, mainly because they aren't correlated with the other positions. So what happens is you see them sprinkled throughout the lineups, but they don't get pulled along in the same way that, say, pass catchers do with quarterbacks, or, the defensive players, the defense does in low scoring games. They just don't have anything correlative that is, putting them into a lot of lineups. So they always show up less. And just traditionally, the field likes playing the kickers more than they show up in optimal lineups and simulated lineups. That said, double kicker is a way to get unique because a lot of people don't do it generally. I know at least last year when I was reviewing like Osimo's lineups, he would have a ton of double kicker, double defense lineups, basically just playing for those really gross, weird outcomes, but doing it so he wasn't duped. And so oftentimes if you're using 2 kickers in a defense, your lineup isn't going to be duplicated as much, which is definitely the name of the game in the large field stuff. So I don't end up with a ton of kickers in my stuff, but I do think there are some scenarios where it could make sense as a path to help you get unique. So let's just see what some of these custom lineups are looking like. I mean, right away, it seems like most of the value is on the Bears side, because even with the Bears having, a touchdown less in their implied total, 16 to 22, you're seeing a ton of Bears lineup. So here, this lineup with a 23 frequency, 5-1 Bears with a Darnell Mooney captain, the next most popular one. And we've seen this style lineup. I think we had the Derrick Henry captain one. I forget who they were playing. And then it was 5 from the other team. So here's one as well, where you have an onslaught with the Cowboys with Najee. And this is actually pretty similar to the lineup that won. I don't know if it won the big contest last night, but in my 20 max, it was a Cooper Kupp captain with 4 Rams, and then it had Titans defense in it. And so I think sometimes too, we counterintuitively wouldn't necessarily like build a lineup with the Bears defense and Najee in it, because it feels like it's negatively correlated. But when so much of the offense goes through Najee, he's getting 25 plus carries a game. You can definitely see scenarios where this would work out. Man, top 3 lineups, all Bears onslaughts here. Here's another one. Cole Kmet captain. You get the Cairo Santos tossed in instead of the Bears, and then Najee as the lone Steeler. Here's the flip one as well of the Steelers onslaught with just David Montgomery. So that same concept of what if all of the production funnels through a single Bear. And again, it's always nice when this is another really nice thing about the simulations is if you're just running optimals, you'll often see a ton of 3-3s and a ton of 4-2s. But because these simulations are understanding these variables and the correlations, we're getting a lot more 5-1s, which are naturally unique. The field isn't using them near as much. So it's always nice when the math and the leverage kind of line up in our favor. So, I mean, you just look at all these lineups, another 5-1 here. Here's a 4-2. Here's a 4-2. So it definitely seems like we should be playing lopsided lineups tonight. I like this one. And Allen Robinson, Cole Kmet, Santos, Mooney, Fields, Najee. These 5-1s all look pretty good to me. There's a bunch of these at Cole Kmet, Mooney, Fields, Harris, Bears D, Montgomery. Here's another Steelers onslaught. Deontay Johnson. There's our guy, Kalen Bellage. This is the funky one, right? Steelers onslaught with the Bears defense. And I do think that the way this game could go, I don't think that seems crazy to me. You just get, just like the Titans had, where you get the one defensive score or whatever, and that's where all the production comes from. I like these lineups here. Now you finally found something that the Sims can't account for. The Jesse James revenge game. Let me see. What am I seeing here for? No one's sick enough to do Jesse James captain, but let's see him as a flex play. Where is he in my spreadsheet? Jesse James at 3,000, about 8% ownership, and appearing in the Sims about 7% of the time. So not getting a leg up on the field, but go ahead, knock yourself out. If you're going to give Jesse James a revenge game booster, then he's popping. And Alex also points out we have an Anthony Miller revenge game here. You know what? I didn't even get, let me see. Where are we seeing Anthony Miller here? Anthony Miller, where are you? Is Anthony Miller not showing up in the Sims, or did I miss it? It does not look like Anthony Miller is showing up in the Sims. I don't know what to tell you. Let me go look at our inputs here. It looks like we don't have Anthony Miller projected for any stats. So I am sorry. You are going to have to IKB this, because he is not showing up. We did not give him any stats. I don't know. It looks like we were giving it to Cody White and Ray McLeod. No love for Anthony Miller on the Sims. Yeah. Someone said maybe he's practice squad. That would make a lot more sense, I think. Neil says, after combining results from a few different sim runs, I have a ton of results with both defenses. That's interesting. I wasn't seeing that a ton in this one. But I wonder if you did play this as a super low scoring game. What if we just played this just absolutely gross as shit? I mean, what if we played this as like a 14-10, just truly horrendous game, rush rates through the roof? Let's see if we can get some double defense. Because that's what the people want. All right. So in this one, yeah, we get Steelers up here at 30% or sorry, 42% flex, Bears at 42% flex. So in that scenario, you're definitely going to get a bunch of double defense right here. There you go. Double D's, Chicago Bears, Steelers, Bears, Steelers, Bears, Steelers. So there you go. In those default sims, not getting a bunch of those, getting a lot of single defense. But if you play this as a super gross game that goes under the total, by 14 points or so, a couple touchdowns, then you're definitely going to be in double defensive territory there. So again, shows you the power of thinking through the different kind of game script scenarios and how much certain plays pop in those scenarios. Najee holds strong as well at 27%, as does Montgomery, which makes a ton of sense. The defenses and the kind of bell cow running backs would be the ones to really enjoy that game script. Us hand builders like putting our hands on those double D's. And on that note, I'm out of here. Good luck tonight, guys. We will see you tomorrow.